Good evening, it's good to be with you. I know when you think of me, my hair isn't the number one thing, but I did finally get my hair cut. One of my goals had been to possibly grow it out until a vaccine was found, but as you can tell, the heat and the wind won, so done with hair. Psalm 23, verse 4. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Tonight, what I'd like to do is share different readings and quotes by famous people, people who inspire me, people who I hope inspire you. Maybe there's just a word or a phrase, maybe it's an entire reading that touches a place where you are in life. I feel like a lot of people, many of us are dealing with being overwhelmed, with being quarantined for so long, with the fear of COVID-19, dealing with the race relations in our own country, and then our own personal crisis. So I just want to use words that could maybe speak to you. And when I use quotes that say I ask you to picture a lot of them to be we, including the first one. A great French writer wrote, "I quote others only to better understand myself." So these quotes are great people. I could never write what they write. And so we begin. After each reading or blessing or prayer, there'll be a short pause so you can absorb those words and take them to heart. The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles, "Mend my life," each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones, but little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. A blessing by John O'Donohue called For the Exhausted. When the rhythm of the heart becomes hectic, time takes on the strain until it breaks. Then all the unattended stress falls in on the mind like an endless increasing weight. The light in the mind becomes dim. Things you could take in stride before now become laborsome events of will. Weariness invades your spirit. Gravity begins falling inside you, dragging down every bone. The tide you never valued has gone out, and you are marooned on unsure ground. Something within you has closed down, and you cannot push yourself back to life. You have been forced to enter empty time. The desire that drove you has relinquished. There is nothing else to do now but rest and patiently learn to receive the self you have forsaken in the race of days. At first, your thinking will darken and sadness take over like listless weather. The flow of unwept tears will frighten you. You have traveled too fast over false ground. Now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles you rush through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain when it falls slow and free. Imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color that fostered the brightness of day. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself. Stay clear of those vexed in spirit. Learn to linger around someone of ease who feels they have all the time in the world. Gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart, and the joy that dwells far within slow time. Stephen King from Different Seasons. The most important things are the hardest to say. They are the things you get ashamed of because words diminish them. Words shrink things that seem limitless when they were in your head to no more than living size when they're brought out. But it's more than that, isn't it? The most important things lie too close to wherever your secret heart is buried, like landmarks to a treasure your enemies would love to steal away. And you may make revelations that cost you dearly, only to have people look at you in a funny way, not understanding what you said at all, or why you thought it was so important that you almost cried while you were saying it. That's the worst, I think. When the secret stays locked within, not for want of a teller, but for want of an understanding ear. The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longings. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you'll risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you've touched the center of your own sorrow, if you've been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul, if you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty, every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me to know how you came to be here. I want to know if you'll stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you've studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. And healing words from Rachel Naomi Raymond. She has been counseling those with chronic and terminal illness for over 20 years. She's a doctor, and this is strengthening life. We strengthen life anytime we listen generously or encourage someone to find meaning or wonder about possibility, or dream or hope or escape from self-judgment and inner criticism, or know that they matter. Anytime we share someone's joy, we bless the life in them. Jesus does this naturally. Jessie does this as naturally as she breathes. Her own life has not been easy. Nonetheless, she is a celebrator, a deeply happy person. Although she has had 2 episodes of colon cancer and many professional disappointments, her joy in life is tangible. I smile whenever I'm in the same room with her. So does everyone else. She's always the first one to celebrate someone's birthday, to remember anniversaries, to congratulate people on their success, whether she knows them well or not. So Jessie is one of the first people to call when something good happens to you or to someone you love. She's there to listen to the whole story with delight. Often when you finish talking to her, you feel better, even better, about what has happened, luckier than before. Once we were sitting together in a doctor's office, awaiting the lab results of her 6-month chemotherapy checkup. I had asked her about her joy in life. Her own life had been so hard. Didn't she feel envious of others who had the things she did not? She had smiled at the thought and shaken her head. Then what's your secret, I'd asked her, laughing. Suddenly serious, she had replied that it seemed to her that joy was not something personal. When I looked at her baffled, she explained she'd found that if you're genuinely happy for them, people are very generous with their joy and share it with you open-heartedly. When something good happens to the person next to me, I'm there to celebrate with them. Their good luck makes me feel lucky. I rejoice with them about it as fully as if it were happening to me, she told me. It makes me really happy. She paused and looked thoughtful. Of course, then it's happening to me, she said with a grin. When Jessie was first diagnosed, her cancer had spread beyond her bowel. Despite this, her surgeon had operated and moved as much of it as he possibly could, but he could not remove it all. We need to keep her comfortable for as long as we can, he told me. That was 15 years ago. It makes you wonder. From Psalm 77. I will call to mind the deeds of the Lord. I will remember your wonders of old. Let us pray. Faithful God, like a tree holding sacred stories within its trunk, I began and now breathe because of dark, damp earth. Gazing back on my life, I'm freshly amazed at how you've worked before, surprises and fidelity, intrinsic to the person I am now. Memories of deliverance ground me once again as the wind around me picks up. I dig with hopeful courage, intertwining my soul with your anchoring roots, praising you as my protector, leaning on your wisdom, soaking in your love, seeking you for daily strength and stability. I need those memories, God, as I weather new storms, major changes, struggles, frustrations, and anger, ripping limbs off, leaving me stark and bare. Yet in each year's mercies, a ring grows within my trunk, some rings thick from lush seasons, some thin and light from drought. I continue to grow and become, all through your grace, keeping my roots in deep dampness that keeps me alive. Amen. May the Lord give you peace. Amen.